My husband and I went on a trip to Australia to go rockhounding. On this trip, we flew out of Seattle to LA. Then from LA, we went to Sydney. So that was the start of our trip. Airports, long flights, very tight seats on the airplanes. Not as much fun for that leg. I took a photo of the Australia money we brought since it was so colorful. We also packed lots of sunscreen. Almost missed our flight in LA since the airport was such a mess and our connecting flight was across the entire airport. We got in Sydney early in the morning and we took an Uber to our rental place for the caravans. I went with another couple from here in the USA and we were meeting a couple from Australia. So on the trip, we went from having eventually 3 caravans slash motorhomes following each other and going to various places to go rock counting and visiting and some tourist things along the way. We started out in Sydney, went to the caravan place. We got there about an hour and a half early, hung out, checked in, and with no driving experience on the wrong side of the road, we just went for it. Our first stop was a local hardware store to get supplies for rock counting. We got buckets, shovels, rock picks, and more at the hardware store, and then headed out to find a grocery store. We were to start with 10 days of food. We had a microwave and propane to cook with, so even without hookup or power, we had a way to warm up food. Also, the solar panels would stay charged for a day or two, so that helped. We could not find parking for our caravans, and the city driving was super scary. Our caravan felt like it took up the whole road, and with me on the left side, I literally thought it would be like the movies where you sideswipe and knock out a line of cars, or at least all the side mirrors. So both Norma and I were white knuckling it and freaking out at our drivers, our husbands. So we got out of town and we headed to our next destination without any groceries. We drove to Gunnedah, which was halfway to Lightning Ridge. Lightning Ridge is 900 miles from Sydney. Australia is huge. If you take away Hawaii and Alaska, Australia is the size of 48 of our states. So we did a lot of driving on this trip. Well, Todd, my husband, did a lot of driving on this trip. So we have a shorter drive window of time since we're not supposed to drive before dawn or after dusk due to the danger of hitting kangaroo. This was a real thing, and most of the vehicles had grills on the front to prevent damage to their vehicles. Our caravans did not. We had to watch out for kangaroos while we drove, and we kept seeing signs that said, "Watch out for trains." And we found out it was their version of semis. They would be on average 3 to 4 lengths long. We met a guy at one point that said his dad drove one that was 7 sections long. OMG, that would be insane. Every time a train went by us on the road, it shook everything. They would be going 110 kilometers or 130 kilometers per mile, which is about 78 miles or more an hour on the road at any given time. So no time to avoid a kangaroo or to have any driving error. There's no sides of the roads on the outback, just red earth, magnetite, or iron nodules. Not much on the outback. Dirt, not much dirt to be seen at all, which is why we also saw signs saying be careful of flooding or water over the roadway. And they would have tick markers showing how high it was or could be. It was super scary to think that we could be stranded due to a rainstorm since the ground just does not is not the same. It's very slow to absorb water like it would be in the US with the regular dirt that we have. We got halfway to Lightning Ridge and stopped at Gunnedah. Just as the sun was setting, we went to the local store for some food for the next 10 days or so. And then we hooked up at the local campground, which Australia had lots of campsites and pullover sites, rest sites, pretty frequent along the roads in the outback, which was really good. We had to use them a lot on our journey. We hooked up at our caravan, and I noticed the sky was full of birds. Thousands of birds. I started filming them and was just amazed. Partway through, I realized they were not birds. They were bats. thousands of bats, huge bats filling the sky. I was in awe. I tried to film another video, but it was hard at night to really capture it all, and we had to head to bed. We had to make it to Lightning Ridge the next day. So we all got up early to find bats, thousands of bats, sleeping in all of the trees around us. Not just a few, but more than I could have ever counted. Huge bats, the size of eagles, large fruit bats. I was taking photos, and a local guy was like, "What are you taking photos of?" And I was all giddy to tell him. I was excited about all of the bats. He was not. He said they were pests, and then I said, yes, they help pollinate and get rid of pests too. Aren't they amazing? He kept saying negative comments, and I kept spinning them around to make them positive. He had enough of me and did a big guffaw and left. He was not going to ruin my happy mood. The rest of our group got some coffee made, and we all agreed to go on a walk to check all the bats sleeping in all of the trees. It was such a cool sight, and they had a nice walking path behind the campsite to do that. Let's just say I took so many photos and videos of bats, they had to drag me out of there so we could get on the road. It was hard to leave the bats behind. It was such an incredible sight. We did finally get going and drove all day to get to Lightning Ridge with a little rain and a double rainbow as we entered. It was a magical end of our drive for the day. We met up with Peter and Sherry, our Australia friends, and hooked up the camper. We had dinner by camp stove and talked about our journey so far and the itinerary for the trip. The next day, we took the day to check out the town at Lightning Ridge, as well as all the shops, some local artists, and to see if we could go dig opals anywhere in town. We saw lots of amazing opals, opal jewelry, cabs of opals, polished opals. The only site open for public was a tailing dump that local miners dumped the tailings into after they went through it. So we didn't find anybody that was willing to let us go down their mine shafts or anything like that. But a couple years ago, someone did find an opal that was worth about $10,000 in this local tailings pile. So it was still possible to find some pieces that they had missed. After touring the town and eating, we headed over on foot to the tailing pile. I didn't change into my work boots. I figured this didn't really count as a real dig spot, so it was not needed. I should have changed. The rain had caused the ground around the opals to be liquid clay muck. It was hard to walk in, kept sucking at my sandals, and it also make it hard to see with the opals with all the puddles of wet clay around the bits of stone and possibly opals. So I just sat right down in the middle of it and got to work finding opal chips and didn't worry about my shoes that were already destroyed or my pants. I could just hose them off later. I had other clothes to change into. We found a fair amount of opal chips, and decided to come back at night to look at it with a UV light to see if we could find more. Lots of things fluoresce at night. Every scrap of paper, potch, and more. It was fun, but not as successful as we would have hoped. We did have a bunch to clean up for later, though. We saw lots of birds from here on out. Galahs, magpies, butcherbirds, which also look like magpies, apostle birds, and crested pigeons, and more. The next day, we headed out on our way to the next stop, which was the town of Sapphire, which is on the edge of the bigger town Emerald. It was a couple days of driving. We drove all day to Injun and stayed the night, and then drove all day to Sapphire to stay with Peter and Sherry. Peter and Sherry have a sapphire claim that they live on, off-grid, and we stayed there with them for about a week. We visited the town of Emerald. We got to meet a bunch of their friends, as well as go to breakfast and dinner with locals that meet twice a week to eat together and socialize. We met up with the local lapidary club they belong to and see their setup, which was amazing. They had so many faceting machines and armors for cabbing. It was just incredible. We had a great time with everybody. We spent most of our days mining sapphires at either the claim we were staying at or offsite in the public areas. After we got our fossicking permits, of course, they call it fossicking instead of rockhounding, so that was interesting. but it was easy to get our permits. We filled them out online and had copies on our phones if we ever needed to show proof that we had permission, which we didn't have to show to anyone, but better to be safe than sorry. Huge fines if you get caught doing that without a permit. Also, huge fines for speeding, so we made sure not to do any of that. We'd been warned ahead. Our friends let us know that 5 miles an hour over is $1,000 and 25 over, they take away your license. So we watched that very closely. In Sapphire, we got to go to campfires, meet friends. I got to feed rainbow lorikeets by hand. Look how excited I am. That was a blast. One morning, I woke up by a laughing kookaburra. It was incredible. I accidentally woke up Todd since I was giggling so much from the laughing bird. It was a great way to wake up. We finally saw live kangaroos, since before this, we had only seen roadkill of them. Yeah, so many, hundreds of non-alive kangaroo. Probably the saddest part of the trip was all the roadkill we saw along the driving. This day was the beginning of us seeing real live kangaroos. At one point, I did see a whole flock of sulfur-crested cockatoos. Got a quick photo of one group, but missed the second group. That was cool to see in the wild. I have to say my favorite Australia bird is the galahs. They were everywhere. Every stop we made, every morning and evening, they would greet us. Pink and gray, such cuties. They do make a ruckus, but I loved it. We went to Sunday market and got to buy some opals from the local miners, since in town the shops didn't have much rough opal, mainly only in jewelry. Also, not much else besides opals and sapphires and jewelry either. I only found 2 shops in all of the shops in Australia that we went to in the outback that had chrysoprase, and not much of that. We didn't see any mookaite, nundrite, yellow prehnite, or zebrastone, which was surprising to me since I have those in my shop in Washington State. So maybe we just were in the wrong area of Australia to see those things. We weren't on the coast or the tourist areas, maybe. We were in the outback. So you would think that they would have all the Australia stones, at least for the tourists in Australia. Not the case. This picture is also odd because it looks like Todd's on the left side, but I'm on the left side. So it must be the angle. Maybe the photo flips. I don't know. I did find myself wanting to help these small shops, businesses, and miners as someone that does a lot of marketing, and it was rough to see so many things that they could do better or to bring in more sales, since most of the shop looked like they were hurting for customers. Maybe just off season, but who knows? Maybe because it's remote locations. I don't know. I didn't think they would appreciate someone from out of country trying to give them advice, so I kept that to myself. But it was hard to watch as somebody that's been in the business a long time, seeing so many things that I wanted to help them with. We made a deal with a local friend, Lynn, to get some of her rough, not cut Agate Creek agates, and ended up trading our gold coin Todd had brought for just the gold content value. So at a loss to get more Australia cash to acquire the 18 kilos of these that I had hand selected. Yay. This would be rough to ship back, but we already knew we would have a lot to ship back at the end of this trip. So just adding to the load. Here are photos of some of her cut and polished collection pieces. She's not ready to sell those yet, but maybe someday. They are beautiful. After a week of digging sapphires and buying local stuff from the miners, we headed out to go to Winton and Opalton to go digging boulder opal. Here's some photos still from the sapphire mine of us working some of the dirt. Partway to Winton, we stopped for the night on the side of the road at a pullover spot and slept so we could get up early for the rest of the drive. The next day, we arrived at Winton and had a nice campground to hook up at. Check out this little lizard. And I guess this little lizard was a mama lizard because Sherry saw babies later, but I didn't get a photo of that, so I didn't get to see it. We spent the rest of the day checking out the local shops, and I met up with one of my opal contacts. And we made a deal for some rough, as well as talking about some future deals. Also saw some really beautiful opals in some of the local shops. The galahs lined up on the phone lines at sunset when we went out to eat. It was quite the sight. We saw amazing flowers in town in Winton. We woke up early the next day and drove out to Opalton. We all piled in one Jeep. Sherry had to stay behind and she did laundry and relaxed since we only could fit 5 of us in the Jeep, and she would be going later in the month. We off-roaded. It was super bumpy. Many times they slammed into the ceiling. It was so crazy on these back roads. Also saw more kangaroos, and Todd was in the front on roo watch. We did see lots of horses, cows, and cattle of all kinds since there are lots of ranches all over Australia. Ooh, there's even an emu in the middle there. When we got to the owner of the opal mine, opal claim, I should say, we were getting to dig up. We met more friends of Peter and Sherry's, and we spent the rest of the day noodling one of the unsearched claims. He had over 30 claims. He used to own 150. They had consolidated that down, and they now live on their claim and have quite the setup. We found so much boulder opal, even though some were very small. I didn't want to leave. We all had separated and spread out all over the claim to find boulder opals. I had wandered off quite a ways, I guess, and Todd had to find me, tell me they had been honking for 30 minutes from us to come back and head to town before sunset. I didn't hear anything. Look at Todd trying to eat his sandwich under the netting. We did have netting. I could have stayed there for weeks. It was fun. We were lucky to get that chance to picking and noodling at the opal claim. The flies were thick. We did have to wear our netting. Check it out. You can see us with the netting. We got to check out some lovely opals owned by the claim owners that they had personally collected at their Lightning Ridge claim. Because not only did they have opal claims at Winton and Opalton, they also had claims at Lightning Ridge.
I'm going to take a video.
Along with some amazing boulder.
Ready for opening this baby.
So first we go like this.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And you see the seams.
Wow, look at that.
Right.
And then...
Oh. Look at that.
See the heart in the center?
I do see the heart in the center.
So this is one part. So I'll put it here.
Really pretty. And then the red egg.
Now you're ready?
Ready?
Whoa.
Oh, wow. Gorgeous.
Yes. So you
Look at the color. I'm going to take a video. Ready
So I
for
wanted to show
opening
that
this
video.
baby.
They had some amazing pieces that they had dug at their opal claim also.
And you see
We got up early and headed out. We had a long drive to our next dig site at the Gem Tree area. It will be a few days with lots of stops in between. One of our stops was to see the boab tree. Super cool. Looks like a pregnant tree. Very sacred and rare, which is why this is all fenced off. You don't want anybody handling it or messing with this tree. So it was cool to check out. We actually took lots of photos around this area. On the way to Mount Isa area, we stopped by and got a quick glance at the Walkabout Creek Hotel in Queensland, Australia, from the iconic movie Crocodile Dundee. We also stopped off at the side of the road before getting to Mount Isa and headed out early in the AM to Camarillo, where we were able to collect some ribbon flint and ribbon shirt of all kinds before heading and going to camp. We ended up going to a campsite with a lovely pond and some brolgas. I don't know if I pronounced that right. But they look like herons in Australia. So here's just some pictures of that. We left early to get back on the road, stopped by for the night up at Tennant Creek. We also drove by what they call Devil's Marbles, which are huge concretions, which were fun to see. There were so many of them and very massive in size. Back on the road with a stop overnight at a turnoff on the side of the road and a final stop at Gem Tree. The final day, the next day. Yay, we finally get there. Excited to finally be at Gem Tree, which is a place to pay to dig. We had booked it for 4 days, 3 nights. The first day I got to meet a fabulous old-timer who grew up in the area with his dad rockhounding. He was fascinating, in his late 80s or older. So I sat and talked with him for over an hour while everyone else checked in and got settled at the campsite. The sunsets were amazing. I really enjoyed my time visiting with some of the locals and with this gentleman that I had met at Gem Tree. The next morning, we all got prepped on what we were digging and got the essential tools, screens, and water, etc. we needed. We all followed the tour guide to our first day's spot. We were digging garnets the first day. I have to say, we have better garnets in Washington than in Australia. Most didn't have any nice crystal shapes, mostly very small and etched, or just garnet chips in smaller chunks. You would take a scoop of dirt from the area into one of the screens and swish into a rubber bucket bin, then clean off again into another bucket or bin to clean off again. Look into the screen and pick out the garnets. If you can't see them well enough due to all the magnetite, iron nodules, then you'd hold them up to the light and see the red that is what you want to see. Yeah, you can see all the flies. There would be times it'd be so thick through my netting that I'd have to wave them off just to see. You can kind of see some stuff going on here. The rubber bins that the water was in was only a little bigger than the screens, so when swishing back and forth, my hands would hit the sides, and I had bloody knuckles within the first couple hours. Most of the others bailed on this method early. Maybe for this reason, the tour guide left about an hour after we had the day to dig what we wanted, and head out back when we were ready. A couple hours before we were due to leave, due to the sun ready to set, we spread out and looked around to surface hunt a more widespread area. Kevin had found a moonstone that he gave to me to entice us to look for more. It worked. We spent a couple hours looking for more moonstone. None was found. We did find many more garnets, and we found some calcite, which was cool as it was unusual in this area. We were tired after digging all day in the sun and looking forward to the next day of digging. This is just a very small amount of garnets that we dug. I have many more that I cleaned up later. The next day we started the same. Met the tour guide, got supplies for the day, screens, rubber baskets, bins, water. We all drove out to the new site to dig zircons. We went over what to do, what to look for, and what not to look for. Along with zircons, there would be lots of apatite, and a lot of them with iron staining, which is covering with the small magnetite nodules all over the place. I found out we should have brought a magnet to pull all of those off to make it easier to sort. They used to include this in the tour, but they ended up with less magnets, so they stopped including that. I wish we would have known ahead, because I definitely would have brought a big magnet. That would have helped a lot with taking the magnetite off of the areas that we were searching. But we didn't know, so we were not prepared for that portion. We had to move a lot of dirt to find zircons. Before heading out, we met up with friends in the area, and we checked out his record grade zircons, and I had to purchase some, along with finding some very cool ones during the day too.
Okay, you're on.
So much sitting and sorting over.
Start out like this. Well, Todd already did one in there.
Here's a little video of me doing
over
it.
to the dirty bucket, or dirtier water. Clean it. Fine. Even my dirty water needs to be cleaned a little bit, I think. And then we're going to go to the cleaner water. Check out my fingers, bloody knuckles from all the shaking against the sides. doesn't stop me. So in here,
The water
we're hoping
was
for
very
appetite,
limited, so
most likely, but we're hoping for zircons. So ready for the flip? Pretty good.
Look at that right off the top.
You look, spread it.
Right there.
That's an appetite.
Oh.
It's hard to tell sometimes. So appetite. Is there appetite? Appetite. There's a lot of magnetite. Some of the appetite I'll save. And I'm really looking for zircons. So let's get rid of some of these bigger magnetite pieces. It's easier to see that way. Oh. So this one looks almost like a magnetite, but it's got a little champagne color. That's a zircon. That's going to the zircon pile. Oh, and here's a red zircon. And another little zircon. So yeah, look through here, spread it out. And this is a zircon. Hard to tell with all of this, right? That's a little zircon. You're gonna go through, and this is what we've been doing. Hello, fun stuff in Australia. Okay, appetite. Still filming?
Yep.
You can cut it now.
Okay, you're on.
it was a blast. My hands were definitely sore.
Todd already did one in there.
It was way worse on this day
go
since
over
it
to
was
the
a
dirty
lot
bucket.
more to sort and sift
Dirtier
through.
water.
We did find some fabulous zircon, way more appetites. I didn't realize how hard this would be and how rare they really were found. In addition to this, we had a very limited amount of water, and if it would have been nice to have had more water, because I could have filled that bucket up higher, but we had to go through and clean out our water pretty often.
Cleaned a little bit,
So, because you're
then
just
we're gonna
going
go
through
to the
so much
cleaner water.
magnetite and so much dirt that, you just didn't fill the water up very much. You don't have to last the entire day. So,
Check out my
gives you an
fingers.
idea of what
Bloody
you
knuckles.
need to bring. Bring
I'm all
magnets if you
shaking
go to the
against
site.
side.
We spent the next day doing laundry, washing up and cleaning rocks. This became my evening chore for the many nights for the rest of the trip. Washing rocks, letting them dry out in the sun. After we got cleaned up, we headed out of town the next day and stopped off on the way to Alice Springs to meet up with the older gentleman I had met. He had wanted me to stop by on the way out of town to his place. We talked rocks. He gave us some books he had written and he wanted me to have. We also bought some rocks off of him. He tried to just give them to us, but we knew he needed some money to fund his car. He needed to get it back working again, so we insisted on paying him. So we bought some stuff from him, and Norma and Kevin had bought some stuff from him also. We had to gas up frequently on this trip since we had to drive so much. And we were told Alice Springs was a place not to stay overnight due to the high crime rate. So we stopped by fast for gas and groceries, which we had done throughout the trip. And then we found a place to pull off a little ways outside of that town. The next day, we headed to do the only main tourist thing that we did besides rockhounding or visiting. We had planned to go to Uluru. We got there a day earlier than planned, since you never really know how long it's going to take you on all these driving portions. So we stayed in the overfilled parking camping lot and then moved the next day to our booked spot for the next 3 days. So you can see this sign here with some of the caution over the roadways, the train cautions and whatnot. The next 3 days, we cleaned rocks. We got ready to pack up some of them for shipping. We also did nature walks, talks, went to art shops and exhibits, checked out all of the shops that they had at Uluru, which is also called Ayers Rock. It's like a whole town there on its own. Food, entertainment, approximately 1,000 people live there on site. You can see us here. And of course, I'm cleaning more rocks. And we're doing a little painting thing. Norma and Kevin went on a helicopter ride I'm afraid of heights, so that was not for me. We got to try eating some exotic food like kangaroo and emu. It was actually pretty good. Check out these sunsets. Ugh. The sunsets and trees were amazing every night. I'll never forget them. On the third night, we had a sunset dinner, field of light show to see. On the way to dinner, we got to listen to a didgeridoo. After dinner, they did a star talk about legends and constellations. It was incredible. The Field of Light show was originally an art installation of 50,000 fiber optic lights that spread across the desert, making for quite the show. Originally set in 2016, the art installation was so popular, it was supposed to be temporary, but they kept it up. And they have had over, well, to date, 750,000 visitors. They've extended this show indefinitely. So if you go out to Australia, this is a must see. When we left Uluru, we headed toward Cooper Pedy and had to stop at Cadney Park at nightfall to rest up for the evening. The next morning, we headed out early to Cooper Pedy as we got closer mounds in every direction for as far as the eye could see. When we arrived, we checked all over town for shops and miners to get some opal from. And in addition, we tried to book one more rockhounding trip, but they were all booked up for the next 4 days. So we had to head to the airport soon. So we were not going to get to be able to dig at that location. Along the route, we packed up a bunch of our rocks we had collected. We shipped one group of 3 boxes in Uluru, got some more packing supplies to pack the rest, and worked on that nightly shipping out, some out of in Cooper Pedy and the rest out in Adelaide when we got there. In Adelaide, we cleaned and returned the motorhomes, caravans, got a hotel for the night, and went to the airport in the AM for the long 3 flights home. Check out this emu we saw on our trip and these termite hills and ant hills. They were everywhere. So many, just thousands of termite or ant hills all along the route. Home sweet home, my favorite photo from the trip. What do you think? I hope you enjoyed our rockhounding adventures in Australia.